Welcome to the Classy Liberal podcast. I'm your host, Classy Liberal. Today's guest is the Liberal Sanity Project. How are you, man?
I'm doing good. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. I'm a little tired, but I'm doing fine. So let me ask you something. Why did you choose that name, Liberal Sanity? Do you just want to show people that hey, liberals aren't all crazy feminists, or why?
Um, I'm not necessarily convinced feminists are crazy, but basically, I saw people who proclaim to be be liberals were making liberal-esque arguments very badly. Um, and I thought I could do a better job of it, and I basically just wanted to make the better argument, and I thought I could do that. Um, I don't know if I have. I'm not arrogant enough to say for sure, but yeah, I don't know. It's been fun.
All right, cool. So, what made you want to start debates and stuff like that? Like, do you just like arguing with people, or I don't know?
um, I don't. I think I just have experience doing it. Like I'm a Texas liberal. It's just kind of a thing that you get used to when you're in Texas and you're a liberal. I don't know if
Oh,
that makes
I see.
sense.
I see where you're coming from. So basically, you've always been a little bit of an outsider or a little bit of a misfit,
Oh
at
yeah,
least when it comes to politics.
yeah. It's kind of funny. As far as Texas go, like Texas is like mainstream for conservatives. But if you're a Texas liberal, you're not really like mainstream liberal. You're still like out of the norm as far as liberals go. So I don't know. There's kind of like an identity crisis that I kind of have. Um, like where I'm too far left for Texas, but I'm too far right for everyone else.
Oh, I see where you're coming from. So, like, how do you become liberal or slightly left leaning on a very conservative state? Like, I don't know if you want to talk about your childhood or if you grew up there, but
Yeah, I grew up here. I was born here. I like most people. I think you get it from your surroundings. Your politics are like for as far as ideas go. They either make sense or they don't make sense. Either something appeals to you or it doesn't appeal to you. You don't really have a choice. And I don't know. I just noticed like when I started getting politically minded that the arguments of conservatives never really appealed to me. I suspect my father probably had something to do with that. Just like anybody else in my surroundings, anybody else who influences me, I listen to arguments. I like to listen to the arguments and see which side I agree with. And I don't know. I think I'm still discovering who I am. I think anybody who's humble enough to be in this game should be willing to do that every time they upload a video.
all right. So, how would you define liberal then, in your words?
Uh, I don't even know anymore. Um, I would have described I would have defined liberal as a person who adheres to Enlightenment values, but that's a bit of an umbrella term because I think mostly everybody agrees with Enlightenment values. And then there's a problem with some liberals who don't necessarily adhere to those values, or they approach it from different angles that aren't necessarily justified. Criminal justice reform is an area where me and other liberals disagree vehemently. Um, I guess I would say liberal is somebody who's on the left of the political spectrum who uh, I'll separate an economic liberal from a social liberal here. A social liberal is somebody who's not afraid of change, somebody who is not xenophobic, uh,
Sure.
doesn't really is kind of libertarian insofar as other people's cultures and norms goes, and doesn't believe that they are to be the arbiter of what is right and wrong in the social world.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's a decent definition, I guess.
Yeah, if you find a
Um,
better one, let me know.
well, I have an idea of what a liberal is, actually, though. I don't know if you want to hear it right now.
Sure.
Um, all right. So, how I call myself classy liberal, so you can kind of guess what type of political affiliation I am. But the way I see is that like every sort of political ideology values something. Conservatives, they value tradition and they value, I guess you could say, nation in a lot of ways. And of course, they can interpret what is a nation differently. Progressives, they value equality. Socialists, they value, I guess you could say, workers' rights or redistribution of wealth.
Sure.
And I guess you could say libertarian, they value freedom, but in a very radical way. I
Yeah.
say a liberal values individualism and freedom, just not in a radical way. A liberal is essentially someone that is moderate, that is open to compromise, but wants to put the individual above everything else.
Sure, I think I generally agree with that.
Sure. Of
Basically,
course, then.
everything that's good in the world is liberal, and everything that's bad in the world is conservative. Just go with that.
Oh, that's gonna anger some people, I know. Okay. But okay, so let's go with immigration. You lightly sort of mentioned that though. So what's the deal with immigration, man? What's
What kind of immigration? What are we talking about specifically?
like I don't know, how do you feel about like immigration in the United States? Like, do you think we should have restrictions on immigration? You know, like
No,
that sort of stuff.
not
Okay.
generally. I think the only restriction should be limited to people who might pose a danger to the country in some way.
Sure.
Generally, if you look at the data, you'll find that immigrants coming to the United States actually commit lower crime than native citizens, than native-born Americans, and they tend to improve the economy. They actually tend to make the economy. They grow the size of the economy by growing the supply of labor. Which also, by the way, grows the supply of capital, which grows the supply of consumers, which is what our economy is based on. We are a consumer-based economy. What you spend is what I earn. Immigrants are a boon in that sense. They're also a boon in terms of social, or I'm sorry, not social, political, human capital. They're a boon in terms of human capital, which is their own skills and individual experience that can bring a spirit of entrepreneurship to this country. Um, I think we get numerous benefits from immigration, and I think it would be stupid to say there aren't any kinds of consequences. Dr. Robert Putnam from Harvard wrote a paper about the cost to what he calls social capital, which is basically just a fancy way of saying community trust that immigrants bring to a society. Um, I think those problems go away on their own within a nation. I think benefits are long term and the costs are short term. And so I don't want an immigration policy that restricts immigration. I want an immigration policy that opens it up.
One second. Okay, so how would you respond to people that say that like a lot of immigration can sort of take away a country's culture, can sort of radically change a country's culture? You know,
Um, yeah, that's true, but I don't even know what that really means. Um, I mean that the nature of culture is to look at other cultures and take from them and adapt it to yourself and make it. Culture is like a virus, right? Culture absorbs other things and then changes it, and we get numerous contributions to this country purely based on the culture of other people, of other immigrants. I mean, just think of the anime craze in the United States. I mean, that's Japan importing their culture to us, and we don't seem to be complaining about it. Um, I'm going to go all social justice warrior here, but the only times we tend to complain about the erosion of culture is when it's coming from brown people, and I vehemently reject that as a bad thing. People like rap music, people like Mexican food. Like, why can't we just absorb these things? These are good things.
oh, so you're gonna destroy a nation just because you like Mexican food? That was a joke.
Then the
Uh,
nation's still going to be there.
I'm sorry, he kind of cut out a little bit.
The nation's not going anywhere. The nation. This has been the process for every nation and every national culture since there was nations and cultures. It was learning from other people and adapting to itself. And you know, this is the sort of thing the alt right says that bugs me, because I'm not necessarily sure your culture is entitled to protection, that we should forego all of these benefits we'd get from immigration in the name of basically protecting people's feelings. Um, if you want your culture passed on, pass it on to your children. Nothing stops you.
Okay. But how would you sort of respond to the claim of demographic displacement, which is just a sort of PC way of talking about white genocide?
It really is a PC way of talking about white genocide. You're not being displaced by brown people coming here. Unless you choose to leave of your own free will, nobody's displacing you. This is the freest, this is a very free country. You can live where you want, nothing's stopping you. This idea that brown people coming here forces you to move and to flee your home in terror is nonsensical snowflake bullshit, if I may be so blunt. Just learn to live with people. It's really not hard.
Sure, sure. But let me ask you something. Do you think there is a sort of illegal immigration problem, or do you just think that like all humans, there's no such thing as an illegal immigrant?
No, I'm not that kind of idiot. No, obviously there are illegal immigrants. What people Okay, so I'm going to defend the liberal position here because a lot of people get this wrong. When they say stuff like this, that no human's illegal, and I'm not speaking for all of them, I'm not speaking for the people who make this touchy-feely argument, but there's an argument that illegally immigrating to a country is not
Oh,
is not major
sorry.
criminal sense because it's a misdemeanor crime. I'm sorry, do you hear me?
Yeah. Sorry out a little bit. Just can you start from the beginning of that sentence?
Yeah. Okay. So there are some arguments that country in terms of crossing the border at an unauthorized checkpoint is a misdemeanor crime, and it's not something we consider very major. But something like 40% of all illegals in this country are brought out over visas. So criminal law. So all
Sorry,
said,
I'm gonna have to stop you
can you
there.
hear me?
You're cutting out really badly, man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a way you can fix that. Um,
Hang on.
yeah, so we're about to go into our first intervention.
Should I reconnect?
If you don't mind, that's, yeah.
Yeah, I'll reconnect.
Okay. Sorry guys for that. We're having technical difficulties. At least from my side, he was cutting out a lot, so he should back soon. But I think the conversation is pretty interesting, though. I think he has a pretty rational view on immigration. I'd say I probably mostly agree with that.
All
Right?
right. You hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, man.
Okay. So I don't know what you heard. Should I start again?
Okay, yeah. So, do you remember what you were saying about immigration and illegal immigration?
What I said was we should have totally open borders. If every legal wants to come in here, we should just open the floodgates and destroy the white race.
Yeah.
No, I mean we've obviously we have too many illegals here, but immigration from Mexico is at like a net negative at this point. Like Mexico's economy was bad, and that's what caused a boom in immigration here. Um, if we want to fix that, I think we need comprehensive immigration reform. And what's unfortunate about this debate is a lot of people's idea of comprehensive immigration reform is let's just close the border or let's add more border patrol. I think that's stupid. It's not going to do anything. We could have a moat with alligators in it. It's still not going to do anything. I think we need to change the entire system of immigration we have in terms of getting a green card. Has something like a 5 to 10 year waiting period. It's obscenely difficult to become a citizen in this country, and we have something like 12 million illegals here already. We can't just deport them all. That's logistically impossible. So we have to approach this rationally. Whether we like it or not, we're going to have to give citizen. That is the smartest solution to that problem.
Okay, so just to clarify, so you sort of do see where some people are coming from, where people should follow the law, but it's just unrealistic to deport, what is it, 12 to 15 million people.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, of course, people should just follow the law. I would love it if everybody immigrated here legally, but this is the real world. We're going to have to understand that some people are going to flee here, and they're going to sneak in if they don't have the financial means to do it. And we have to figure out a better way of handling these people than just instantly deporting them.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, I guess I would say that would make sense. But like, what about having like some sort of? I mean, I know you said that like, obviously you can have a moat with alligators and that wouldn't do anything. But like, how about the wall? How do you feel about that?
Show me a 10-foot wall, and I can show you an 11-foot ladder.
Really?
The people who are proposing that walls are going to work to stop immigration are the people who will swear up and down that gun-free zones don't do anything to stop mass shootings. So it's stupid policy to me. Of course, it's not going to work. If people are desperate. I'm sorry. What's up?
No, I was just gonna say that some people might point out to like how other countries have had similar policies, building a fence or a wall. Some people might point out to the wall that they have in the West Bank.
Well, Do you really want to emulate Israel? Firstly, it's not even analogous because we have a much bigger land border with Mexico than most of these other countries. So it's not even practical to build a wall. It's also obscenely expensive, and the upkeep and maintenance will billions in debt. What purpose would it serve to? I mean, do you really think people are going to immigrate to this country and then get to a wall and say, "Shit, better turn back"? I mean, it's just going to kill more people trying to cross. At worst, that's what it's going to do. At best, it's not going to be a deterrence at all.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, so I don't know if did we ever touch on demographic displacement? I think we did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Then we can sort of move into the sort of next topic. So I remember seeing part of your debate with Aiden Palin regarding the Electoral College, though.
Yeah.
So
That was a fun debate.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was a fun debate.
Yeah, definitely. I enjoyed it. But I guess you're one of the few people out there. Well, maybe there's a lot. I'm sorry. I shouldn't underestimate how many people advocate for this. But you're one of the people out there that actually wants to get rid of the electoral college. Actually,
Yeah.
would you mind sort of justifying that position?
Justifying this. Okay. Basically, I believe all citizens of the United States should have political equality. You, as a United States citizen, should be valuable in just as much as me. That we should be of equal value. And the Electoral College erodes that value because people from certain states have their votes count for more than people from other states. Basically, the smaller your state population is, the more your vote counts. And the bigger your state population is, the less your vote counts. And if you're from a territory like Puerto Rico, so even if you're a United States citizen, you can't vote there. So it's an unjust system, basically.
Oh, you cut out in the last sentence.
Did you hear the part where I said Puerto Ricans can't vote?
Yeah, you said Puerto Ricans. It's unfair that Puerto Ricans can't vote. That it's an unjust system.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but like, how would you respond to the claim that, like, well, if we were to get rid of electoral college, essentially have some sort of direct democracy, essentially, we would always have a democratic president because the elections would always be based on the most populous cities, which are always going to vote Democrat. Or
Gosh. George W. Bush was the last Republican to win the popular vote. That was in 2004. And before that, George H.W. Bush won the popular vote. And before that, Ronald Reagan won the popular vote twice. It's not uncommon for Republicans to win. They just want an electoral handicap.
Okay, but like some people would argue that if we have this system is the electoral college system is more democratic because it would let states vote. You know, it's sort of like
No,
um
that's less democratic, in my opinion.
that's less democratic. I mean, I'm not saying I even agree with this argument, but I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here. That essentially that without an electoral college, you let I guess a country decide. Yeah. But if you have an electoral college, you let the states decide. So each oh shoot, he cut out right exactly when I was asking him something. So okay, more technical difficulties. Awesome. So give him a sec. Let me message him on Discord. Are you okay? Okay, yeah, he just sort of left for a second. I don't know if he'll be back. I hope he'll be back.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Everything's fine, man?
Sorry, I just disconnected. Oh, man, I don't know how much of that you heard. I was ranting and raving.
Were
Okay,
you?
so yeah, the way I see it is states have their interests protected in the Senate. Every state has equal representation in the Senate. So an electoral college to protect states is unnecessary. So the way I see it is a popular vote is used to elect mayors, governors, congressmen, senators. Then it's good enough to vote to elect a president. Your district votes for, or I'm sorry, your district elects your congressman, your state elects their senators, and your country should elect your president.
Sure. I don't expect you to have all the answers, but I just want to know, how do you think we're are we gonna get rid of the electoral college if it's sort of like embedded in our constitution?
It's more or less. It's probably not going anywhere. The closest we got to it was something like an amendment in the '70s that never went anywhere, or the '60s or '70s. I'm not sure which. To amend the Constitution to turn it into a popular vote. That never went anywhere. There is something called the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, I believe, which is basically that every state simply agrees that whoever wins the popular vote gets the electoral votes of those states. Um, I hope it gets to a point where it's 270 worth electoral votes. The plan doesn't kick in until enough states sign on that it's 270 electoral votes. It's a total legal and constitutional way to go to a popular vote system without amending the Constitution. And I don't think it's going to happen, but I hope it does.
Okay. I see. So, let me ask you, how do you sort of get ready for these debates that you have on YouTube?
I over prepare.
That's
Um,
good. I want to know how. I want to get good at these debates.
well, which week? What do you want to talk about? Like, what specific debates did you watch of mine?
Well, I saw the one with Aiden Paladin. I recently started the one with Sinatra regarding gun control. I've seen the one you had with some dude. I think it was about the gender law that they have in Canada.
C16. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So, I like to take notes. What I do is I open up a WordPad and I compile all the sources and information I can find on this given topic, and I try to figure out what their counter arguments are, and then I try to like find the note to respond to it, like find a link that says this is what this is. I'll even send you one. Hang on, send you my one for the C16 debate because I still have that one uploaded. I'm sure.
So you
Um,
study for a test.
basically, sometimes I over prepare. Basically I just build outlines that have all the points I want to bring up, and I can use them. Here's Aiden Paladin's one. I didn't know this one's still around. I'll send you the one I gave to Aiden Paladin chat for Hangouts. But basically, I prepare notes like that, and then I just like study them so that I know what I want to say and how I want to respond to arguments.
All right, cool. This is awesome. Definitely take a read of this later then. So,
Yeah.
which one of your debates would you say is your favorite that you've had so far on
Oh,
YouTube?
favorite. Hang on, that requires some thought.
That's right.
Let me look at what I have.
Yeah, you cut it.
Yeah, I got like ones I got.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but it's just like it's very choppy right now.
Uh,
Okay. Sorry. Apologies for
give.
what's up.
I'm sorry. Give me 1 second.
All right,
I'm turning on my mobile hotspot for my phone and just using this. Gets my internet.
sure. Take your time, man. Just let me know when you're ready, and I'll try to. Well, give him some time. Um. So. Mhm.
All right. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Do I sound better?
Yeah. Sorry. Let me just read some of the comments really quick. I'm actually surprised I have comments. That's what a socialist internet sounds like. It's that liberal internet classy. Awesome. Cool. Okay. So, yeah. What's your favorite debate, man?
um. Let's see. So this is gonna sound like dumb because it was actually like these were two debates I had with people I'm not even friends with anymore. but probably my gun control debates with Dawn of Two Plebs and the Car Show, because they were nuanced. They were fair. I think we both gave good points back and forth, and they didn't evolve into like a total scream fest. My abortion debate with Destiny and my gun control debate with the Car Show, I would probably say are my two favorite debates.
Sure, but I don't think the abortion debate with Destiny was really a debate. I'd say it was a very nuanced discussion that turned into sort of psychopath contest.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, go on.
I mean, we disagreed, so I don't know. We disagreed and we gave each other countering points about our disagreements. I guess but we did it in a way that was civil and was able to progress. So I don't know if you call that a debate or not.
Sure. I mean, I definitely enjoyed the conversation regardless. So let's talk about that for a sec. So
Sure.
how would you sort of say is your stance on abortion?
To the right of yours, after I saw your abortion debate, I would say I don't know, I'd say I'm liberal. I believe a woman has a right to an abortion.
Okay, but you said you're to the right of me. That's kind of weird. Um,
Well, you put a cutoff period of something like 35 to 40 weeks.
oh, 30 weeks, but yeah, it's pretty liberal.
That's really extreme.
I'm trying to be really principled here. But what is your cutoff date then? I would like to hear that.
So it's not really set in stone, but the point of viability, which is generally around 25 weeks, but due to advances in medical technology, it's probably more around 20 weeks at this point.
Okay, and why choose that?
Because I think at the point of viability, a fetus has rights. I think it is now reasonable to consider a fetus a person.
Okay, and how would you differentiate that between, let's say, an embryo? Like, why is it a fetus has rights and not an embryo?
Because an embryo does not have viability. Like its progression starts as like an embryo, then a zygote, and then a fetus, or I don't remember. But it's basically just stages in development, right? At some point, we consider it a person. Where that is the subject of rigorous philosophical debate, and the epistemology you use to approach that needs to be consistent and somewhat weighted against the ethics of the other arguments. And I think we already accept that a baby is a person, a baby just born is a person. So it's weird to think that 10 seconds prior to being born, it's not a person, right? It doesn't have personhood. I'm not sure I agree with that. And the reason I choose viability is because it's what makes the most sense to me. If you can't survive with or without the aid of technology, then why would I consider you a person?
Okay, so I guess maybe I'll somewhat uh, give an explanation for my team. So the way I see it though is that I set it in 30 weeks just to be safe because there's just no clear mark of when there is what you say is a fetus is viable. I just put it out that I put it at 30 weeks because that way it's easier to vary. But you have to understand that like any sort of like an abortion that's like that some people would call partial birth abortion, although I think that's a really bad name. I would just call it a late term abortion, maybe.
Yeah. There's no such thing as partial birth abortion. That's a propaganda term.
Right, of course, is rare.
Yeah, very rare.
To me, it's not gonna make a difference if we really if even if we were to put at 39 weeks. But I don't think I could really have that position because at that point, it's the difference between that and a born child is just it's just almost no difference basically. Um,
Basically, yeah.
yeah, so I would put it on 30 weeks just to be safe, just because like I don't know if because like it's possible that a fetus may not even be fully viable at 25 weeks or 26. Um, but I understand that's a very tough position to sort of argue from, and I might actually change my mind to 20 weeks. I'm just trying to be principled here and just trying to sort of like have a system that's going to work for everyone. But
Yeah.
I sort of see why it could come up as very extreme. But do you think that like there should be any sort of okay besides having a cutoff at 20 weeks. So there should be any other restrictions like economic restrictions, like regarding
No, absolutely not. I
abortion.
think that's a very dangerous idea
Why?
to economically restrict people from getting abortions.
No, no, not economically restrict people. And let me clarify that. Should we subsidize abortion?
Um, Maybe. I mean, it's already illegal to subsidize abortion. There's something called the Hyde Amendment that requires by law that federal funds cannot be used for abortion. I think it would probably be smart to subsidize abortions, contrary to federal law. I think federal law should probably get changed. Because I think we get benefits from societal benefits from abortion being legal, easy, and accessible for women. So I don't know. I guess I like the idea of people having options, and if they're financially barred from getting an abortion on the basis of their income, I think we're just going to end up passing the costs of whatever child is born onto the taxpayer.
Okay. And how would you respond to the argument that abortion is sort of not negative to society, as rather than that it sort of encourages people to inducing risky behavior rather than start a family?
Yeah, I'm not convinced by that argument at all. Like people are going to recklessly get pregnant because they know they have an abortion. I don't think people think like that.
Okay, but do you think that like since we've legalized abortion, has that any sort of like negative impact in our society? Yeah. So
I think if there are negative, well, on our society needs defining, but I think if there are negative impacts, it's probably on a personal level. I think it's probably negatively impacts the family structure in some way. But I don't think it's for government to decide on behalf of other people what a good parent is or isn't, or what when a family is or isn't. I think that's a matter of her privacy. It's between a woman, her doctor, and her God, and it's that simple.
okay, and how would you sort of like argue with people that saying that like in principle the government's role is to protect life, and since okay, I guess you sort of define life differently from some people, because some people do define life as the moment of conception. We should just have restrictions on abortion there.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that government's job is to protect life. I think government's job is to protect persons. Um, and I think there's a cutoff point. I mean, there's an induction point for becoming a person. And you remember me giving this example to Destiny. Like, if it were really about life, why not go further back to the sperm, right? Conceivably, if you're the Stephen Bunnell you are today because you're the zygote that turned into you could be a completely different person just based on the sperm that made it. And I think this is a fair argument that nobody ever entertains for some reason.
Okay, sure. So let me see. What else is there? Um, so how would you describe yourself economically?
Liberal.
Yeah, but
I
mean a lot of things.
Okay. Um, a Keynesian liberal, I would say.
Okay.
If you're familiar with the Keynesian school of thought.
Yeah, essentially, you're a capitalist, but you support the welfare state.
Yeah, more or less.
Okay, then. And how would you well, oh, let's see how to explain this. Why do you choose that? And like, let's say not a more Austrian or Chicago approach. Basically, why aren't you a classical liberal, man?
Just based on the research I've read, it seems like these policies work. I think free trade policies work. I think immigration can be a tool to better economic policy. I think minimum wage is good economic policy. I can cite you the Alan Kruger and David Card study from New Jersey as an example of raising the minimum wage that ends up helping people without hurting unemployment. I don't know. I think the welfare state is a form of stimulus that reduces income inequality, that reduces poverty. I think it's got numerous kinds of benefits. And I think if we just went with the Austrian spend nothing approach, we would be hurting the economy.
Okay, but do you have any sort of like evidence of like Austrianist policies hurting the economy, though?
I would say the entirety of Europe enacting Austrian policies, such as Greece during the Great Recession, as an example of harming the equality. They went with an Austrian approach, which was austerity, which wasn't investing in the economy, it wasn't paying for new jobs, and they came out of the recession much slower than we did when we passed something called the American Recovery Act to get out of the recession, which created something like 2.5 million jobs.
Okay, and how would you like respond to people who say like Chile, the sort of example that generally speaking, that privatization is better than nationalization? Like people like say,
It might be, well, it might be for Chile. I believe in a completely nuanced approach. Not every answer is 100% right 100% of the time. And if there were an Austrian approach to something like the Great Recession, then I think we should have taken it. But I don't think there was an Austrian approach. I think what happened was we had a credit crunch and no banks were loaning money, so we had to inject money into the economy. And I think a Keynesian approach worked best.
okay, but how would you respond to people who say, well, the Austrians predicted that we would have recession and depression?
Cool.
But
I mean, great. They predicted we'd have a recession.
but you don't think like there's like use of having on these schools of economics if they're able to actually like predict sort of where economy's going? Um,
I think the value in predicting a recession before it happens is if you can stop a recession before it happens. And I don't. We obviously we didn't do that, so I don't know what the value is in predicting it. I mean,
oh,
it's great they predicted it, but it wasn't Austrian economics that got us out of it. It was Keynesian economics.
oh, okay, so I'm returning to the no, really not like that, but that's fine. Okay, so okay, that sounds pretty rational. So
You sound kind of muffled, my dude. You,
I sound muffled.
yeah, you sound a little muffled.
How do I sound now?
You sound sexy.
Okay, that I hope that means my audio's fine. All right, that's cool. So let me see what else do we have here. And these are the sort of main topics we wanted to dive into, though. Are you good for time?
Yeah, I'm good for time.
Okay. How much time has passed?
Let's see. Abortion, immigration, and the Electoral College is what you sent me.
Yes, that is what I sent you, though. Would you mind talking about the alt-right for a little bit?
Sure.
Yeah, so that's actually a topic that I'm somewhat interested, not because I am alt-right or because I have alt-right leaning views. I just sort of find that it's interesting how race realism and ethno nationalism all of a suddenly gain a little bit of traction in this side of political YouTube. When I remember 6, 8 years ago, these were like really fringe, sort of hard to find views, and all of a suddenly it's become kind of like a cool thing to sort of so support now. We've had like a rise of like new alt right related content creators like Nick Fuentes, um, Jean Francois Gripe, and a few others, of course. So yeah, man, what's your thoughts on like the rise of like these weird,
Oh, I love these guys. Thanks for asking.
uh,
It's the open marketplace of ideas.
sure, but you no fear that like this is gonna like feel hatred or you know.
Oh, absolutely. It has fueled hatred. I mean, if you look at the Southern Poverty Law Center's tracking of hate crimes, you'll
Oh,
find that there's a
triple,
emergence of hate crimes.
not a
Huh?
parentheses organization.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Sorry, isn't that a triple parentheses organization?
The Southern Poverty Law Center?
Yeah, I'm joking, by the way.
Yeah, they track hate groups. That is their job. Um, a lot of people think they're a bad source because they occasionally get something wrong. I don't agree with that at all. I think they are the world premiere, the most cited in, well, I should say country premiere in terms of hate group monitoring, them and the Anti-Defamation League. And even if they occasionally miss the mark, I think they're generally right. But yeah, basically, if you track hate groups, you find that there's been an upward surge in hate groups since Donald Trump got elected. And I don't think that's a coincidence that it coincides with Donald Trump's election. I think Donald Trump picked up their talking points and injected their talking points into mainstream culture, and it kind of mainstreamed their views. And Steve Bannon calls Breitbart the platform of the alt-right. And I don't know. It seemed like an inevitability, I guess.
Okay, but like, how would you respond to the claim that the left created the alt right? That this is all
Bullshit.
blame on the.
Okay, then Christianity created Islam. Like they would never, nobody would ever buy this approach with anything else. Like I no.
Oh, really?
Xenophobia created the
Okay, but you don't think that's a sort of like, because we have some rise of the sort of like anti-white mentality from the far left, that we needed some sort of counter to this. Essentially, we needed
no. I don't buy that at all.
Why not?
Because it's implausible to me. I don't think you can go from seeing an anti-white narrative from the left and go, well, I guess I need an ethno state now, right? You don't go from reading stupid hot takes from some Tumblrina on Twitter to full-blown 1488. Not unless you already had this internal thought process moving in your head. It's just, they don't connect to me. I see the alt-right as having been sort of a underground movement on the internet that basically got mainstream because of Donald Trump.
Okay, and how would you respond to, like, do you think like there are any sort of how do I say this? Do you think there's like any sort of like I had a good way to word this, and now I don't know why, but my mind isn't working today, at least when it comes to like speech. Okay, so do you think like there's any good reasons for the existence of the alt-right? Do you think they have any valid concerns? Like, for example, I don't know. I've heard a lot of alt-righters speak out against like affirmative action and how that discriminates against whites.
No, I really don't. I think if you take affirmative action as like the main form of discrimination against whites, whites are not suffering on a societal level like blacks or browns are. So I just take it as like whining that she didn't get a seat at a table. Yeah, I don't know. No, I think any of their arguments are valid. I don't think their immigration arguments are valid. Their arguments about culture are valid. I don't think the desire to have an ethno state is valid. I think all of these are really stupid ideas, and I honestly wonder how people legitimately buy into them.
Yeah, but like, what about the response to like certain races? We're all humans here, but maybe some people should just keep their own kind.
I think that's a stupid and self-destructive idea.
Yeah, because a lot of people in the alt-right are saying that it's not about superiority or inferiority, but it's just like society prosper, homogeneous.
No, that's bullshit. See, this is the sort of thing the alt-right does that actually annoys me. They will say, I'm not a white supremacist. I'm a race realist. I don't believe whites are superior to other races. I believe we're just different. All races are different, and all races are comfortable around their own people. And that's how they dress it up in a nice, pretty bow tie for people. Okay, but they ascribe everything that's good to whites and everything that's bad to blacks, right? Blacks are low IQ, and they're dangerous and aggressive. They have the warrior gene, and they're all in jail. And this is the kind of stuff they'll say. But when it comes to whites, high IQ, right? Mozart was white. They'll gin up every kind of accomplishment they can attribute to the white race, which is just lazy. The only reason you would cling to the accomplishments of ancestors, not even your ancestors of other people who looked like you, is because you have nothing of your own to prop up. It's just irresponsible to me. Their ideas are dangerous. And in fact, we'll talk about the benefits of diversity. There was a study from Forbes Insights that basically did a survey of different businesses across the United States and asked them about their diversity initiation programs. And basically the businesses that were more diverse were basically more successful in almost every metric. They had less turnover, they had better human capital, more innovation. They were basically better off for being diverse than businesses that were homogenous, racially homogenous.
Okay, but like, how would you respond to the claim that like some people in the alt-right, the more quote unquote moderate, saying that, hey, we just want the same immigration policies as Japan or certain Asian countries, saying like, if if we can have Asian countries for the Asians, African countries for the Africans, but like Europeans, why is it that like, oh, but they have to be for everyone?
Um, because whether they like it or not, we're becoming a global world where we're just going to have to learn to live with everyone. Like we are a global world where it's, and if you want to do better, if you want to be able to compete and stay relevant in this global world, you have to learn to take advantage of the best resources you have, and people are resources, right? It would be stupid to exclude a Nobel laureate doctor who puts us at the who lands a man on Mars because, well, he was born in India, right? We're passing up serious accomplishments that we can tie to our civic identity on the basis of nothing but skin color and fear mongering.
Sure. But like, what about people say, but we just want the same immigrant restriction as Japan. What's wrong with advocating for that?
It's not doing Japan any good. I mean, they're a dying society. They have high suicide rates. They have an aging labor force. You don't want to do that. They're also an incredibly racist society. So I don't see why I would want to emulate Japan.
Okay. No, I agree with that. I'm just trying to play, devil's advocate here.
I hear you. You're devil's advocate.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just trying to present you, sort of,
Debate, man, I will destroy you.
just sort of arguments that oftentimes people would make, just so I don't
Yeah,
just hear and like, sort of agree with like everything you say. I want to make things fun.
yeah, I understand, and I think there. I mean, I enjoy entertaining the arguments, but after a while they get tiresome because they're really hateful, and it just gets kind of annoying reading the same nonsense constantly. Like they will. I like the race and IQ argument's an argument that particularly annoys me. This is an argument that people have run away with a lot of junk science to try to understand, to try to approach. They cherry pick their sources. You'll find Davida Piffer linked to a lot of alt hype alternative hypothesis articles on his website. This is a guy who believes telekinesis is real. So I mean, it's my problem is that they obfuscate their arguments behind pseudoscientific mumbo jumbo. And if you dig and you look, you find arguments that they're making, you can better understand what the source of these arguments are, and it gets kind of old and tiresome rereading the same arguments. Like immigration, we'll take the argument that immigration is bad for the economy. Anybody who cites this, I guarantee you, is going to be citing one source: the Center for Immigration Studies. I promise you. Find anybody who's saying immigration is bad, it's going to be a Center for Immigration Studies source. They're a white nationalist think tank. They were literally founded by a white nationalist.
Okay, but what about the sort of claim that they're just trying to point out basic biological differences that genetics influences IQ, and they'll say, well, on average, the sub-Saharan Africans an IQ 70, whites have an IQ 100,
So
and
I don't know what good it. So genetics does influence IQ, but they take it a step further from saying genetics influence IQ to saying those genetic differences are based in race. Now, I admit that I'm not entirely qualified to speak to this. So I have to cherry pick. I have to get onto the arguments of other better people and see what they're saying. But from my understanding, from the papers I've read, and I can provide you the outline I compiled on it, IQ and genetics I'm sorry, the genetic variation in IQ is only something like 50%. The rest can be informed by environment. And I don't see the point in harping on the differences in IQ when the IQ gap between whites and blacks is closing, which should signify that it's an environmental impact. That's the cause of the gap. Whites and blacks face different environments.
sure, yeah, I would agree with that. So I'm not sure if there's anything else you would like to talk about.
I'll send you the outline I compiled on this. Like I actually, so you ask how I prepare for debates. This is how I do it. I go and look up outlines. I'm sorry, make up outlines for stuff like this and compile them and read what they say, so I can understand what the arguments are. But admittedly, with stuff like this, I need the help of smarter people than I, because I'm not qualified to understand psychology or biology.
Sure, sure, that's understandable. But no, if there's anything else like you would like to clarify, then if not, we can sort of end it here.
Um, yeah, let's talk about you. Why? What are you, classy liberal, or you think you got a superiority complex? Why are you calling yourself classy? Like, this implies everyone else is not classy.
Okay, so I guess there was a time when I was sort of getting into the whole classical liberal thing, watch a lot of Rubin Report, that sort of stuff. So I kind of like the term.
You watched Ruben?
Yeah, I mean, I like to watch interviews where the guy just agrees with everything. It's actually, he does have some pretty good guests from time to time, actually. Um,
Yeah, sort of.
Sort of, yeah. But I sort of changed my perspective of Ruben, and I think maybe I'll save that for another time. But anyways, I was sort of like into the whole classical liberal thing. I really like the idea that some people are spouting out. I disagree with some of them. Now I think I'm still not exactly sure where I stand on the political spectrum. I say sometimes I feel more center left, sometimes I feel more center right. But my point was is that for some time, I think even till now, I still consider myself a classical liberal. So I thought, hey, what if I'm a classy liberal? Like because like look at my profile picture. I'm wearing a bow tie. I have this nice suit on. I have some, you know.
So pretentious. Look at that bow tie, like James Bond.
Yeah. So yeah, that's why I call myself classy liberal, and I still consider myself a
Yeah.
liberal, but I'm still
Well, hey,
where I stand economically speaking. Because I'm
already, just off the bat, you're better than Ruben. Just know that, because at least he gave me a counter argument.
yeah, definitely though,
I
and
hate Ruben for that reason.
yeah. So that's why I call myself classy liberal, and I hope the purpose of this podcast is so I can have people from all sort of parts of the political spectrum sort of challenge them. I've had people from the alt right. I've had some people kind of center left point of view.
Yeah, I saw. You actually had one of my favorite, most undersubscribed YouTubers on here. I very much enjoyed watching it. You had Sandre Speaks.
Andre's freaking awesome. He's one
Yeah.
of the coolest people in the community for sure, and I highly suggest you check out his channel if anyone's watching.
Oh, I mean, oh, everyone else, yeah.
Yeah, everyone. He's a very intelligent person. He's someone that you don't want to get into debate with just because he knows his shit, and he will have good counter arguments.
Oh,
Um,
you don't think I could beat him?
well, we'll see. Who knows? Maybe it might happen here on the Classy Liberal channel. I don't know. Uh,
Ah,
but
I like him too much.
yeah, he's a really cool guy though, and yeah, I just want to have people from all sort of point of view see like, where they come from, but at the same time, try to challenge them. Even if I agree with them, I still want to challenge them just
Well,
because
I appreciate that.
it helps
So
me.
this
Yeah,
is my problem with Dave Rubin, and this is what I don't want you to emulate for your channel, because I hope your channel is successful. My
thank
problem with Dave Rubin is I can't get any information from watching Dave Rubin that I couldn't get from whoever he's interviewing directly. Like, whatever they're saying, I could just go to them directly. If there's no counter, if there's no push, if there's no real critical Socratic method going on, what point is there in me watching Dave Rubin?
well, like he's introduced you to someone that you've never heard before.
Yeah, I guess. I
Like I've
mean,
never heard of David. What about the time he had David Fromm? And he kind of pushed back on some of the things he said.
yeah, I mean, I like that one with David Frum, but I mean, Rubin's clearly not. Okay, I think part of him wants to be a debater, but for one particular side. And when he gets his ass kicked in a debate, he hides behind this. Well, I'm just an interviewer bullshit. I'm just like Larry King. Like, I don't believe that. He injects his own politics into it all the time. So he's clearly on a side. I think I just dislike. I think I just dislike people lying to me. Like, just admit you're just a conservative and you're running a conservative echo chamber because it's your bread and butter. Like, that David Frum one was actually like really unpopular. Like, if you read the comments, everybody hated this guy. So I think Dave Rubin's smart. He knows this. He's going to go where the money is, and I wish he wouldn't. I mean, more power to him, but hey, whatever.
You sound like you're part of the regressive left right now.
Probably. I don't know. I've been called SJW and Republican and fucking everything. I don't know how many different labels I've had thrown at me.
Okay, so would you like to clarify anything for the audience? Just
No,
to
but I'd like to ask you, what does regressive left even mean?
Well, he calls them the regressive left because he from what I understand from the video though, he thinks that a certain portion from the left are acting more like the way conservatives used to act back in the 80s and 90s, where they used to say, "Oh my God, this is satanic. We got to get rid of it." And now he's saying that like, but now we have leftists saying, "Oh, this is racist. We need to get rid of it." Like that sort of stuff.
Wait, don't you think we need to get rid of racist things?
I think he's like he's talking about like sort of for the social justice crowd that's like that freaks out over sort of like I don't know sort of I don't know issues like I used to watch this content all the time, but like I guess I sort of forgot what people used to like sort of criticize, but things like Gamergate or
No,
uh
I'm familiar with. It's yeah, I don't know.
yeah, but I'm just saying though, like I think there is somewhat of a legitimate use to it, just because I do see some people on the left sort of acting in a way that would have been associated with conservatives a long time
I
ago.
I think there are. I think there. I mean, I'm actually bullshitting you. I absolutely believe there are stupid leftists who take their ideas of political correctness too far, and there is a left outrage culture machine. And I think there's also a problem with leftist purity testing other leftists way too much. All that said, I none of them are president of the United States, and this was my problem with YouTubers who go on video after video about SJWs. I don't care about what some SJWs think is racist. I care that we have a president of the United States who keeps tweeting that Omarosa is a dog, right? I care about a tax cut that he passed that adds so much $1 trillion in deficit. I think it's at least $1 trillion. I'm not sure, but I mean it's ludicrous how we're attacking culture problems and not policy, when policy is what actually is going to dictate the well-being of this country.
Sure. But what about people that say that politics is derived from culture?
Obviously they're wrong, right? If the culture has been leftist since the 60s, which they're going to say, how come we haven't had consistently leftist government? How come Republicans have been consistently elected president or elected the majority in the House or the Senate? I mean, it's a consistent thing. So I don't believe that culture dictates policy. And even if it did, the majority culture, as far as the YouTube political scene goes, isn't leftist. It's righties.
Yeah, there's definitely the anti sort of social justice crowd tends to be more popular than the social justice crowd. Although I've noticed that there has been a rise of new leftists. YouTube channels such as ContraPoint, Sean, uh,
Yeah.
our guy, and I kind of like those channels, even though I disagree with a lot of what they say, just
I
because
love those
they're
channels.
dead, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I think if you had to put me on a scale, you'd call me a David Pakman liberal. I think if that's probably the YouTuber I most resemble.
Yeah, yeah, I like this channel. He has some pretty good stuff. So, if you guys have enjoyed this interview, I will leave a link for the Liberal Sanities project YouTube channel in the description below. I really like his channel. Yes, he's a really good debater, in my opinion, though. And I'll put a card somewhere in the screen too. If you're too lazy to scroll down, you just click that. But thanks for coming on the show, man.
Oh yeah, thank you, dude, and thanks for calling me a good debater. That's actually really flattering because I'm insecure as hell. But thank you.
Awesome. Do you have anything else to say to our audience?
Thanks for watching, Shang Tsung and Ben. Thanks for having me, Mr. Classy Liberal. I had fun. I hope I didn't make myself look like an idiot. Fun conversation. Yeah, I don't know. Thanks.
All right, so that's been the Liberal Sanity Project. Check out his channel, guys. And until then, stay classy.